What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of our NFL season preview. Today, we're going to go through the New Orleans Saints. We already worked on the Bucks in the NFC South and the Falcons, so just the Saints and the Panthers left. I hope you're enjoying what I've been releasing so far. If you do, please hit that like, comment, and subscribe. You can subscribe and be the first one to watch every NFL team season preview that I plan to put out before preseason even gets here. I'll run through each team, each division, make predictions on all of them, and then recap with a few other things that I have planned. So, other than that, we're gonna get started straight into it. I have the topics over here on the left that we're gonna go into for each part of this video, and let's get it started. So, last season, the Saints they finished the season 7-9. They were in cap hell for the entire season, obviously, and they're still there every season. Uh, they just end up doing crazy stuff. They have the least amount of cap flexibility in the NFL, and it's just ridiculous how they continue to make moves. They continue to be cap magicians, I guess you could say. But no matter what, they have flexibility, but then they don't truly have flexibility because they're right at the threshold of being at the end of their cap availability. So they're there again this year. They got some new people in, but they're still having issues. They lost, like I said, they lost 9 games last season. They went on a 4-game losing streak after the Jameis injury. They had the carousel of quarterbacks coming in. They had Jameis, then he tore his ACL. They had Trevor Siemian. They had Taysom Hill. They tried the rookie from Notre Dame, Ian Book. Nobody showed any promise. I mean, Taysom Hill's got that huge contract killing him, and he's doing nothing on the field. So it is what it is, but hopefully they have improvement this year. So the coach change, they brought, Sean Payton retired, brought Dennis Allen got promoted from D coordinator to the head coach. He's still gonna have his hand in that defense for sure. I don't see much changing with the defense as far as scheme. Um, he's gonna be the one that is leading the charge for sure with that. So let's get into the additions this year. So, like I said, they had to change head coach. One of their first signings in the offseason was Marcus May. They bring him in from the Jets. He didn't play last year. He had the injury. He was out for the whole season. As we know, the Jets had a long season full of injuries. So they get him on a 3-year, $28 million contract, which may be a little too much for some people, especially being that we don't really know what we're getting after the injury, and he's not young to say the least. But I mean, he could come in, finally be in a winning environment, and put up great statistical numbers, or be the back end anchor of that defense. Him with Tyrone Matthew, so he could play better than he's ever played before after leaving New York. I mean, it's to be determined. It's downgrade from Marcus Williams who they lost in free agency, but I mean it's a solid replacement for sure. Um, so we'll see what he does in that full safety position. Second one that they brought in, as I just mentioned, is Tyrann Mathieu. That's their big signing. They bring in the hometown hero. Went to LSU. He's gonna come in and be that jack of all trades, like he was in KC. He'll do the same thing here, I'm sure. I mean, Dennis Allen and their duo of defensive coordinators are gonna have fun with making him line up in multiple positions and be the same player he was in Kansas City. He's going to be rejuvenated to come home and play in front of his home fans, so that would be interesting for sure. And yeah, if you hadn't noticed, I do have a Saints shirt on from Louisiana, so am a little biased towards them, but still have another team that I cheer for. So outside of that, they did re-sign Jameis. They were in the Deshaun Watson conversation for a while, got out of that, ended up re-signing Jameis to a 2-year contract, solid price. He was 5-2 last year in his 7 games that he started. Tore his ACL, hoping that he's going to be back for training camp. But the word is today that it's going to be iffy if he's going to be back for a mini camp. So we'll see what happens with Jameis, see how long he's truly out. Hoping that he comes back so they'll have a full season, because I'm sure Saints fans do not want to see Andy Dalton, Taysom Hill, Ian Book, any of those three get any of the starts early in the season, because their early season schedule is very easy and they need wins, but we'll get to that in a moment. The wide receiver, that whole group has been the talk of the town for the Saints and all the Saints fans. They hope to get Michael Thomas back. He was out all last year with the whole debacle with his ankle and the lack of information that was truly shared amongst everyone within the organization. Hoping he comes back, but again, there's word that he may not be back for training camp, so we'll see. They drafted Chris Olave, their first overall pick, moved up to trade him. They traded away a good bit to get him, so they're hoping that he's going to be the stud that they predict him to be. Then they bring home the other LSU player, Jarvis Landry. Going to be a slot monster for them, or they hope for him to be. I think people forget, due to his injuries, how great he can be in the slot. I mean, I remember his Miami days when he was putting up 10, 12 catches a game for like 3 or 4 weeks straight. He might have 40 yards, but he'd have 12 catches. So you get him the ball, hopefully let him have the ability to get some yards after the catch and help promote this offense to the next level, especially not having a franchise quarterback in Jameis Winston. The other thing, like I said, their draft, that was their key additions. They took Olave at 10 out of Ohio State. I mean, you watch the film, he's a crisp route runner. He has the top end speed. I mean, he ran a 4.39. He broke the record at Ohio State with 41 touchdowns. I mean, he's going to be able to be used in a variety of ways in this offense for sure. Being that Michael Thomas is back, he's going to be the wide receiver 2. But I mean, still expect him to line up he could be anywhere on the field between he and Jarvis Landry. I mean, it's going to might be all 6-7 yard catches, but this offense should take a leap forward, especially with this wide receiver group. They then drafted Trevor Penning. There's been comparisons of him to Taylor Lewan as far as his attitude and his motor and his just rough physical play. But he's still kind of raw. The downside to him is that you watch him, he struggles in the run game, especially with the number of penalties that he has. I mean, would you rather have someone who has the skill set and just has penalties? I would rather that versus the opposite. Because, I mean, the penalties, getting the right culture, get the right coach, I mean, he can work on the penalties. If you don't have the skills, you don't have the skills. So, I mean, the future may be bright for him for sure if he can control the penalties. Being that they lost Tyrone Armstead and they have James Hurst that they have in here to replace him. So I'm sure Trevor Penning will be the day one starter to protect Jameis Winston's blind side. So another good draft pick for them. That was their key additions. So now we'll go into their losses. They did have a few losses for sure. They lost out on the Deshaun Watson trade. They were one of the finalists, the Panthers, the NFC South, and the Browns. The Browns ended up had the biggest offer. As of today, though, it looks like the Saints may have looked out. I mean, Jameis is not a franchise quarterback, but who knows if Deshaun's even going to play. I mean, there's already talk of how the Browns could possibly void that $300 million contract, even though it's fully guaranteed. See what happens with that. It's probably a blessing in disguise that the Saints were able to not get Deshaun Watson. Like I said earlier, they lost Tyrone Armstead. They have this duo right here filling in the left tackle position. Trevor Penning, I'm sure, is going to get the start. Tyrone Armstead went to the Dolphins. He was one of the best offensive tackles in the league, anywhere on the line. They're hoping Trevor Penning is the long-term solution, especially spending a first-round draft pick on him, because Mickey Loomis goes all in with all his moves for sure. Like I said earlier, Sean Payton's out. They have Dennis Allen, head coach. They're going to still continue that same culture. See what the offense does with Sean Payton being gone. Marcus Williams was the other loss that's the main reason they brought in Marcus May and Tyrone Matthew, try to replace that loss in Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams, one of the top safeties in the league. He goes to the Ravens, so they're going to try to rebuild that the back end of that defense and keep it one of the top defenses in the league. Other key loss was that Malcolm Jenkins finally retired. Had a long career with the Saints, Eagles, back to the Saints. He finally hangs it up, so they move on from him also. So that's their losses. A few key losses for sure. Getting to their strengths. Spoke about it a little bit. But, I mean, their wide receiver core. I mean, this may be the top could be the top wide receiver core in the league. You look at 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I don't know how much better you could get with these players, especially if Michael Thomas comes in and is the player of old, and Chris Olave hits as a first-round pick. I mean, other people expected Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson to go first, but Saints or go ahead of Olave, but the Saints go in and take Olave here. Surprised a few people. So you look at Michael Thomas as the 1, Olave as the 2, and Jarvis in the slot, and then you add in Kamara coming out the backfield as a runner and as a pass catcher. I mean, you can't get much better than this, if any better, as far as offensive weapons go. So if the offense doesn't score, it's on Jameis, honestly, at this point. It's Jameis's spot. It's his time to shine. He's not going to be in a better situation than this. The offensive line is solid. It could be better, but it is solid. But, I mean, with these pass catchers and Alvin Kamara out the backfield, I mean, it's either put up or shut up time for Jameis Winston for sure. And like I said, with the offensive line, they're pretty solid. They got Trevor Penning. They're hoping he's going to be a cornerstone of this franchise for years to come. They got Pete that they drafted years back. He's been there for years. He's solid, or he's okay, I guess you would say. They got McCoy at center. He's solid. They got Cesar Ruiz, right guard. He's solid. Then they got Ramczyk, who is amazing. One of the best tackles in the league also. He was, per PFF, he was the 4th best offensive tackle last season. So, I mean, you pair him with Trevor Penning, this offensive line could be great. I mean, that's what they're going to need to protect Jameis and prevent the turnovers that he's prone to having. Then you look at the defense as a whole. I mean, they have so many household names here. Amazing players. They got Cam Jordan. They got Anyamata. Sorry. They got Davenport. They got Demario Davis, who since 2019 had the highest PFF score for any linebacker in the league, a 90.1. So amazing linebacker play. I mean, after they got him from the Jets, I mean, he has played amazingly in this defense for sure. They got Tyrone Matthew, Marcus May, Marshawn Lattimore, forced 19 incompletions last year, which was the most in the NFL. So CB1, top 5 CB, maybe top 3 cornerback in the league. And I mean, you pair that with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's always spitting on someone, trying to fight someone. I mean, this defense is, I mean, top to bottom is almost, I say top to bottom, all their starters are great for sure. Amazing players. So that's all their strengths, I mean, plenty of strengths to go on. Weaknesses. Look at their weaknesses. One of their draft picks, to me, it was just kind of baffling. They took Alontae Taylor in the second round, took him 49th overall. There were some boards that had him as low as 119. So, I mean, I don't understand why they reached. If you watch him, if you saw him in college at Tennessee, he was so penalty prone. He was very handsy in coverage at all times. That's not going to convert well to the NFL. I mean, we'll see what he does. I mean, he may come into this defense and Dennis Allen may get him under control, drop the penalties. But, I mean, that was not a smart pick for me. We'll see what happens. I mean, they do have great cornerbacks right now. So we'll see what he does with this Saints defense. Another area of concern is the tight end position. They drafted Troutman 2 years ago. They were expecting more from him. They had Jared Cook, who was older. They got Taysom Hill, who they're paying $1 billion to. I mean, their tight end position is something that can improve for sure. They got one player, and they signed him after the draft in Kroll. But, I mean, Troutman hasn't done anything amazing for sure. So that's a point of emphasis where they need improvement for sure this year. Another issue is cap flexibility. If they want to make moves in mid-season, they're going to have issues. They already have so many cap problems as is. Going to be hard for them to maneuver to get people in or out of this system for sure. And then again, I said earlier, Jameis is not a franchise quarterback. Is he going to take that step again this year to become not necessarily a franchise quarterback, but someone who can take them deep into the playoffs and possibly to a Super Bowl? I mean, the Saints have Super Bowl aspirations. They're not taking a step back. They're all in every year. They're making all these moves to be all in every year. They lost out on trying to get a franchise quarterback, but they do have Jameis. But I mean, if you look at this, doesn't have last year's quarterbacks. Let's look at the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl and how many of them were mediocre and weren't franchise quarterbacks. Last year's Matthew Stafford, amazing. Tom Brady, greatest of all time. Patrick Mahomes, greatest. Tom Brady, again. Nick Foles, there's your first one right there. And he came in and was just on a hot streak after Carson Wentz led him to the playoffs, and then Nick Foles came in and took him the rest of the way. Tom Brady, greatest. Peyton Manning, second greatest. I don't know, top 3 all time. Tom Brady, greatest. Russell Wilson, Hall of Famer. Joe Flacco. I guess that's the first true one outside of Nick Foles, who came in on a burner. Joe Flacco took him to the Super Bowl, but that was one of the top defenses of all time that he led there. That was Super Bowl 47, so that was 9 years ago. I think that was 2012, 2013. So, and that was before the time we had the offensive explosion. So defense was more important back then, obviously. So they're going to definitely need Jameis to step up big time in order for this team to make a Super Bowl run. They're trying to get a division win, get to the playoffs for sure. But, I mean, they do have Super Bowl aspirations, especially with the Super Bowl caliber defense. And like I said, so that's their weaknesses. Overall team outlook. I mean, I've hit on all these things. Their weapons look amazing. Tight end's the only issue. Jameis has to step up. With the offensive line, it's good enough. It's serviceable for sure to have the surrounding pieces around Jameis to do great things. And then you look at the defense. The defense there's no excuse for Jameis to lose these games. I mean, he has the defense that's going to stop the teams. He just has to go out and show up. He's their biggest question mark. He's the biggest X factor on the team. See what he does this season for sure. I mean, their defense last year, they were 7th in DVOA. And if you don't know what DVOA is, that's defense adjusted value over average. So basically it looks at not only just what their defense did, but it looks at who they played, how good the team was that they played, and the type of plays that they played against. And they take the average of what is expected in that type of play and how well did they perform above or below average. I think their DVOA was like 17%, which was good for 7th, like I said. So, I mean, they have a solid group for sure. And they may have even gotten slightly better. I don't know. It's to be determined, see how all these pieces fit into this system. They did bring in Daniel Sorenson. He had the horrible beginning of the season from KC, but they bring him in. He did bounce back a little bit at the end of the season. So they did address their depth some. They got Bradley Roby, brought him in last year. PJ Williams also there. See what happens for sure with the defense. So looking at their schedule and projected wins. Vegas has them at 8 wins this season. So that puts them at 8-9. Right in the middle of the pack. I think that has them second in the division. The Panthers and the Falcons are 5-6 or 5.5, 6, somewhere right in there, while the Bucs are 10.5, I believe. So we'll break down the schedule, go week by week, and discuss what we expect to happen with all these games. Week 1, they go to Atlanta, play the Falcons. Falcons could be the worst team in the NFL. I mean, are they going to be? It's to be determined, but they're definitely in the bottom 5 for sure. Saints going to go in there and get the win. Beginning of this schedule is going to be key for the Saints. So key that they start off hot, because at the end it's going to get rough for sure. The only way they lose week 1 is if Jameis is still out. If Andy Dalton has to play, I mean, we'll see. But I still think they get the win. Week 2, they play the Bucs at home. The Saints always have the Bucs number. I saw a statistic the other day that showed Tom Brady in all other games, he had like, I don't know, I think it was like a 70 or 65%, 70% win percentage while he's been with the Bucs. And he is his average score of 32-20 in those games. In the 5 games he's played against the Saints, he's 1-4, being outscored 17-27. So a 15-point drop-off when he plays the Saints. And he did lose to Drew Brees, but he also lost to Trevor Siemian, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill. Saints always have his number. I don't expect any difference first home game in the Superdome this year. Panthers. I mean, it's the Panthers. The Saints are going to start 3-0 is what I'm predicting this year. So Saints fans, media is hyping them up. Jameis, he's the answer. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. They got to get these early season wins. They followed that up by going to Europe to play against the Vikings. I'm pretty confident in those first 3 weeks, but in week 4, I feel Jameis is gonna have that game where he throws three interceptions, has a fumble, maybe one touchdown, and just reverts back to old Jameis. I mean, he has his spurts where he plays well, but then he always falls back to who he was. I expect the same thing to happen this season. 3-1 is still a great start to through the first 4 weeks of the season. So we'll see what's happening. I mean, they go into week 5 and they play Seahawks. Seahawks are definitely going to be another team that's in the bottom 5 of the league. They're going to be competing with the Falcons for that number 1 overall pick. At home, Drew Lock, he'll be lucky to put up 10 points against this defense. Then we're still waiting to see if Metcalf is going to play, if he's going to hold out, is he going to get that contract? So is Metcalf even going to be there, or are they going to go full rebuild? We'll see. Regardless, Seahawks are not winning in New Orleans. 4-1 through 5 weeks. I mean, Jameis is looking like the answer. They're looking like they could be playing for the number 1 or winning the division for sure against the Bucs. Week 6, we're about to have a hard stretch of games right here for sure. Week 6, they play the Bengals. It's at home, but I still think the Bengals, they had the offensive line. They revamped that whole team. Well, not the whole team, but they filled in so many holes that they had from last year. Offensive line, defensive issues. Everything looks so much better on that team. I think they're the better team. Saints cannot score with them. Joe Burrow is going to show out against the Saints for sure. Coming back to New Orleans, went to LSU. They take the loss there. So they're 4-2 through 6. They got unlucky playing the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. The reason they got unlucky is Cardinals may start off 3-3, 2-4 to begin the season. But week 7, they get Nook back. Nook's back. They're going to be hyped. They're playing at the Cardinals. It's still early in the season. Kyler's probably going to be early season Kyler. And I don't think the Saints are going to get this win. So now they've lost 2 in a row, 4-3 going into week 8. As I've discussed in my other videos, the Raiders, AFC West, it is such a key for every AFC West team. I'm basically giving them almost every win outside of the division. All 4 of those teams could be a number 1 seed in be the division winner in any other division in the NFL. So by default, I almost feel like they should win, keyword should win every game outside of their division. Will they? No. But when you're picking these matchups, they're going to win a majority of them. And they have to keep up with the wild card just within the AFC West. Oh, sorry. Raiders get the win there. Saints are now 4-4. What's going on with Jameis? He's going to revert back, I do believe. We'll see what happens. I mean, he has the weapons, so he doesn't really have an excuse. Ravens on Monday Night Football. People tend to forget about the Ravens. Lamar, I feel he's going to be an MVP candidate this year. Could win the MVP. He's coming back. They're reverting back to that old offense. Whenever you remember the week 1, whenever they played the Dolphins and they put up 53 points or whatever it was, the year that Lamar won the MVP. Lamar's going to show out. They have their defense back. They have J.K. Dobbins back. This team is going to be great, and I feel like a lot of people are overlooking them. Saints get another loss. They've now lost 4 in a row and 5 out of 6, sitting at 4-5 going into week 10. They do have the Steelers here. I feel like this is where they bounce back. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky. This game may be 12-10 final score, but I do think the Saints go in there and win it. Week 11, they play the Rams. Rams won the Super Bowl, but I feel like people are kind of overlooking them. All the talk is about the Bucs and the Packers in NFC, and I mean everybody's just talking about the AFC. AFC's got all the great teams. NFC has nothing. But I feel like the Rams could have gotten better. I mean, yeah, they lost Von Miller, but they re-upped all their players. They brought in some new players. They brought in Bobby Wagner. I feel like the Saints still aren't good enough with Jameis at quarterback to get the win here. Getting closer to, we're past the halfway point of the season. The Super Bowl hangover is falling off of the Rams. They're getting ready for the playoff run. Saints lose here. Week 12. The Saints are now 5-6 going into week 12. They play at the Niners. Feel like this could be a closer game. But the Niners, I feel like they kind of got in a groove at the end of the season. Who's going to be the quarterback? Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, honestly, I could see Jimmy G still getting that position. I mean, I know they took Trey Lance very high in the draft, but Jimmy G may still have it because they were on such a roll to end that season, and nobody wants to trade for him. Everybody has their quarterback or has their plans at quarterback. Do they have the better coach? Is Kyle Shanahan a better coach than Dennis Allen? We'll see what happens, but I mean, I don't think the Saints get the win in San Francisco. So now they are 5-7. They have to make a turnaround real quick. They have the Bucks, then the bye. The Bucks, Tom Brady, he's not going to let this team lose. They're not going to lose both games to the Saints again like this. The Bucks are going to be trying to get that number 1 seed, and they're going to be trying to make it to the Super Bowl. So they need to get home field advantage. They need to get that first round bye. They're not going to let the Saints come in here and go to Tampa Bay, win that game, and still have a chance at the division. Saints are now 5-8 after the bye, much needed bye. This is the time for them to bounce back. They got to go on a run if they want to get the wild card at this point. They have the Falcons. Falcons probably playing for the number 1 pick at this point. I feel like Mariota may get them going for a little bit. Desmond Ridder is going to come in, but I don't think the team is good enough, especially on the defensive side of the ball, for them to be competitive in games. Looking at 6-8 right now. I did initially have them losing to the Browns because I felt like Deshaun Watson would be back. The Browns would be pushing for the playoffs. They're going to be getting in the groove with Deshaun Watson, but with all this coming out, I'm going to be surprised if Deshaun Watson plays at all this season, honestly. So I did have them losing this game, but now I think the Saints go into Cleveland. It's upset Jacoby Brissett and them. I mean, the defense is great, but the Saints are trying to make that playoff push. I think they have the better team without Deshaun at this point. I mean, the season's kind of lost for the Browns with no true franchise quarterback. So the Saints are now 7-8 with 2 weeks left. This game against the Eagles is probably going to be, the Eagles are either going to be playing for the NFC East or a wild card spot. They're going to be playing for the playoffs here. They go into Philadelphia. I don't think the Saints pull it out, though. I think the Eagles are going to be the better team here. Jalen Hurts is going to have an improved year with A.J. Brown and all the weapons he has around him. I mean, we'll see what happens with the Eagles, but I do think they win this game. Saints are now 7-9. Unlikely to make the playoffs, but the Panthers are probably playing for the number 1 pick as well. They're going to play for a top pick. Saints get the win. So the end of the season, 8-9 is what I have them. Probably missing the playoffs at 8-9. But we'll see what happens. They're right there on the cusp of making the playoffs. Flip a few of these games, that mid-season stretch where I have them going 1-7. That's going to be the problem. This is mid-season. They have a rough mid-season schedule for sure. So now we're getting to the top players at each position. With all these videos, I try to say who can be a top 5 player in their position in the NFL. Saints have a good bit. They have Ramczyk. He was the 4th best per PFF last year. Easily can be a top 5. Marshawn Lattimore, again, led the NFL in forced incompletions last year. He could be a top 5 player at his position. They got Kamara. Kamara, I mean, he's always great. He could be another top 5 running back easily. Demario Davis, again, he's getting a little older, but I mean, he still could possibly be top 5. And then also Cam Jordan. He's also older, but I mean, he's continued to put up great numbers. Top 10, all those I just mentioned, plus CGJ. As long as he can stay on the field and not fight everybody, I mean, he could have a great year, especially with all the pieces around him. He could definitely be a great CB2 in the system. The Saints addressed this to some extent, but I still think their problem is the drop-off in depth after these starters. People get injured, they're going to have issues. They are high-end starters and then not good backup players. So I feel like that's the problem with them. But so that's that part for the top players. As far as MVP candidates and most improved player, MVP candidates, only one I see is Alvin Kamara. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yeah, I mean, he could have a crazy year. Anything could happen, especially with offenses today. I have a solid O-line. He has the weapons around him to give him more running room. So we'll see what happens. But Jameis has to be Not the Jameis of old, for sure. Most improved player on this team, I feel like it could be Marcus May, for sure. Like I said earlier at the beginning, he played in such a horrible culture. Did he ever really play with a true winning culture or a winning team? Not like he's coming in to play with the Saints. He may come in here. He may have a bounce back. He had the year off, even though he was injured. No wear and tear on his body. He may come in with all these pieces around him. Learn from Tyrone Matthew. I mean, this secondary is amazing. So it's going to just build him up, and he's going to look like the most improved player on this team, I feel. Drop-off candidates. I've mentioned it many times. It's going to be Jameis. If it's going to be anyone, it's going to be Jameis. He started 5-2 last year, but that winning record was not solely due to him. He still had games where he had many of mistakes and just continued to turn the ball over and make dumb plays at times. We'll see what happens with Jameis, but I feel like if anyone could drop off, it could be him. Got him on a 2-year contract. This is his make it or break it year. As long as he stays healthy, he should perform. He has the weapons, but is he going to revert back to that old gunslinger mentality where he's just throwing it crazily, willy-nilly all over the field? It's to be determined for sure. I mean, I don't see him putting up that 5-2 record again as I've shown here. And, I mean, he'd probably lose the job if they had a backup quarterback worth putting in there. But nobody wants Dalton. Nobody wants Taysom. Nobody wants Ian Brooks seeing the field. So he's the drop-off candidate for sure. Most intriguing thing is, can the Saints turn this 8-9 predicted record around to become a playoff team? It's possible. Does Jameis do anything to change that? He's going to be the one I feel has to change that to get them to the playoffs. He's going to be the make it or break it X factor for them to make the playoffs or miss it for sure. Along the same lines, the hype is all around this wide receiver core. Do they produce? They all could be amazing, like I stated. Or Michael Thomas could stay injury prone, be out for half the year. Chris Olave could be a bust. I mean, we've seen wide receivers be a bust before. Jarvis Landry could come in, be injury prone, continue to be injury prone, or just not put up in this system. So I mean, they could be boom or bust for sure. Neither one would truly surprise me, even though I lean toward them being great. But it's to be seen what truly happens. Drew Brees, do they call him? I highly doubt it, but he did take a step back and is no longer in the booth for NBC. Who knows what could happen? I mean, we've seen crazier things in the NFL for sure. And even though the defense, I feel like they're going to be great, they do have a lot of new parts in here. Do they continue to be great with Dennis Allen moving to the head coach position and new D coordinators in there? I think they will, but it's still something that's intriguing to find out. So with that, I have them going 8-9, like I said, not winning the division, and being on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs go. But they could flip a few games and get into the playoffs. So that'll do it for our Saints recap and preview of the season. Still got the Panthers left for the NFC South. Get into that, do a recap of the NFC South, and start on our next division. If you're liking what you see, please, please, please hit that subscribe button. I can't tell you how much I would appreciate to get the subscriptions up and just continue putting out this content. I'm getting more views and I'm appreciating it, getting a little more feedback. I just want to hear from y'all. Discuss what you like, what you don't like. Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to catch the next one as soon as it comes out. See ya.